Hi everyone, Danielle here. First of all, I want to wish you and your families a very Merry Christmas. I hope you're having a wonderful day, or you had a wonderful day if you're watching this later. I am popping in with a card that I had to make for a last minute gift, like I'm sure happens to many of you. And I'm going to be using our Winter Wishes stamp set, which is super popular and currently sold out, but hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll be in stock either the end of this week or early next week. I'll let you know as soon as it is. And I'm going to be using this large stamp from the set. And this is one stamp. It has the whole scene laid out for you. Houses, trees, and little stars. It makes it really easy. And I'm using this Hero Arts Mid-Tone Blackboard ink, which I like a lot as well. Normally for my blacks I reach for my VersaFine, but I'm actually going to be using my Copics around this ink, and if I used VersaFine it would just smear and bleed all over the place. I find with the Hero Arts Midtones you are pretty safe if you use Copics around them. They don't seem to bleed, they stay put. So I'm going to stamp it. You could certainly use a Stamp-A-Majig or a T-square ruler to make sure this gets centered on your cardstock panel, but as I've said before, I'm a little bit lazy in the stamping department, so I just cross my fingers and hope that it gets centered on this panel. And I am using Copic Express-It blending paper for this, since I am going to be using my Copics to actually color the whole, this whole little piece of cardstock. I'm going to be using toner grays and my Copic sketch markers. I have the T1, and I also, for my darker shade, have the T5. And I like the toner grays because they're a little bit warm. Neutrals are cool, the neutral grays, and I definitely wanted something warmer for this card. So what I'm going to do to start is I'm going to take the lightest shade, my T1, and I'm just going to really color that whole piece of cardstock and really get it saturated so that the darker shade will blend well. And I'm leaving a little bit of a white outline around all of the images. So around the tiny little stars, around the trees and the houses, because I kind of want to give the effect that these little images are kind of glowing, you know, or like shining on the page. And I think I did achieve that, or at least it looks to me like I achieved that look when I made this card. If you didn't want to do that, you could definitely, an easier way would be to use Distress ink with the foam blending tool, and you could do the same. You just wouldn't be able to leave that little white outline around all of the images. And now you see me coming in with the darker shade, the T5, and it kind of looks like I ruined the whole thing right now, but I promise I didn't. Ideally, I would have liked to use a marker in between the T1 and the T5 because it's a pretty big difference, but I didn't have any, so you know, I just had to make do. And the beauty of the Copics is they blend really well. So I have come back in right now with the lighter shade, the T1 again, and I'm just going over that darker color, the T5, and I'm working on blending it and pulling it in towards the center of the card. And I just do this, I don't know, it probably took me a couple of minutes, but it was actually quite relaxing. And if you do it enough, you will be able to blend the dark into the light and create kind of a nice mid-tone gray that puts the highlight on the center of this cardstock panel. So the houses and the stars towards the center will really get the highlight and look like they're kind of shining. I think it's really neat how when it snows, especially at night, it's just so peaceful. Everything is so quiet. And so that's kind of the look and the feeling that I was going for with this card. Just a really quiet, calm, peaceful card. And so hopefully that's the feeling the recipient gets when they look at it. So I just keep blending and blending and blending. And actually I was really happy with how it turned out, despite having a pretty big difference between the T1 and the T5. And as it dries, it'll blend a little bit more. Now that I finished that, I'm going to take My Plate is Full stamp set and this little heart. This is actually one stamp, the laurels with the heart, but I actually cut it apart. And I'm going to be using the Red Royal Hero Arts shadow ink. And we have matching dies for the My Plate is Full set, so rather than fussy cut that little heart, I'm going to use the die for it. So, boop, there you go. Now, after I die cut this, I realized that was pretty tiny, and I wasn't super happy with how it looked. So there is a bigger heart in the set, so I decided to kind of test that out, and I was much happier with the size of that heart. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp that in the Red Royal Midtone ink from Hero Arts. There is also a coordinating die for this in the My Plate is Full die set. So I'm going to just go ahead and find it and die cut that larger heart, excuse me, and kind of figure out where I want to put it. I think I want to cover up this house in the middle. And I'm much happier with the larger heart. I think it just looks a lot better, and it really pops against the gray background. Next I decided that this was a little too flat, so I'm going to take the smaller houses and I'm actually going to stamp them again. I'm going to stamp the whole big stamp one more time, and I'm going to fussy cut out the little houses because right now that panel with the gray and the heart is kind of flat. And I'm going to pop the heart up on foam dimensionals, and I decide I also want to cut out the two smaller houses on the sides and pop them up as well, just to give the card a little bit more dimension and some interest. You could definitely leave it as it is just to make, if you were really in a rush, but I had some time. And then in between that, I decided I was going to take my Signo white gel pen and just do a little bit of, this is how I work, I just change my mind all the time. Do a few little, dots of white on this panel, kind of like little snowflakes. And I think it just added a little bit more interest to the card. I don't know, maybe it's too busy, but I felt like it just needed something else. So there we go. This is my absolute favorite white gel pen of all time. It's great for so many reasons. But I just kind of went around and randomly did some little dots until I was happy with how it looked. And then I'm going to finish. Sometimes I think I have crafting ADD because I go from one thing to another and then back. So I'm going back now to finish cutting out the houses to pop up on that little panel there. And hopefully next Christmas we will have dies for this set so that you won't have to fussy cut these little houses. We did not release them this winter, but I would definitely keep an eye out for them in future releases. There we go. And now that I have them cut out, I apologize for the change in lighting. I had recorded the first part of the video in the morning and the second part later in the afternoon when the sun went down. So then I decided that the panel itself on my white card base was a little flat. So I'm actually going to mount it on a piece of black cardstock and then put that on the white card base. So I adhere that down and move everything out of the way to get my trimmer. And as you can see, I'm not very precise with things. I just kind of eyeball it. So I cut off some of the excess black. I'm much happier with how that looks. I think it makes that scene with the houses pop much more. Then I decide that this is still a little bit too plain, and I add some stitching to the top and the bottom. It kind of grounds the houses and adds more interest, because sometimes even though clean and simple cards are clean and simple, they just need a little something something to help them come together the right way. I'm going to put a ton of adhesive on there and lay it down. And the last thing that I need to do is add my little houses and my heart and decide on a sentiment. So I'm going to use the Warm Winter Wishes one. I'm using an acrylic block that has a grid on it, which is great for sentiments so you can get them nice and straight. And I'm using VersaFine to stamp the sentiment because I love how crisp it always stamps for me. And I'm just going to take some foam adhesive, cut a few pieces, and then stick these houses and the heart onto the card. And again, it just adds a little bit something. Otherwise, I felt like the card would be really, really flat. And that's about it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and like I said before, I hope you guys had a really wonderful holiday, and just thank you so much for a wonderful year, and thank you for watching. There you go. And I will see you next week with some fun announcements, so be sure to stop back then. See you later.